11. For in the time of your most success in 46 first book of the first lords. 5. Slaughtering your fellow man, ye are also pling heaven with the spirits of vengeance. And they will return upon you, and even the Iwans shall turn upon one another, thus saith God. 12. But the Iwans understood not, believed not. And it came to pass that great darkness covered the earth. And man, save the few Lahins, gave up to wickedness all his days. 13. And the Lord's people worshipped and preached in the temples, and the Lord and his heavenly hosts manifested unto them, but all the other races of men heard not, would not come to learn of God. 14. And the Lord became tired in his labor, and he called his angels to him, and he said unto them, Behold, man on the earth hath gone so far from my ways he will not heed my commandments, he cannot hear my voice. 15. And your labor is in vain also. For which reason we will tarry no longer on the earth till man hath exhausted the evil that is in him. 16. So the Lord and his angel hosts departed away from the earth. And clouds came over 47 the face of the earth, the moon shone not, and the sun was only as a red coal of fire, and the stars stood in the firmament as well in the day as at night. 17. The harvests failed, the trees yielded no nuts, and the roots on which man feedeth ceased to grow. 18. And the monstrosities, and the yaks, and the druks, died off, tens of millions of them. And even yet they were not extinct. Nevertheless, the Iwans suffered less, and the Iahans not at all. For the Lord had previously inspired them to provide against the coming famine. 19. And the Lord bewailed the earth and the generations of man, I made man upright. And walked by his side, but he slipped aside and fell, said the Lord. I admonished him, but he would not heed. I showed him that every living creature brought forth its own kind, but he understood not, believed not, and he dwelt with beasts, falling lower than all the rest. End of the first book of the first lords. Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. God of the second cycle after man's creation. Chapter I. Hen God and his lords of heaven and earth had lost their heavenly dome in Ion, the swift messengers, that constantly ply through the atmospherean and Etherian worlds, bore the report to JEHOVIH's kingdoms in Ethre. 2. The earth had passed the Gion eddies at Shrapa, in the Etherian roadway Hye Bakiv, and was heading for the eastern fields of Anakarn, having entered the Danahian arches of Viatavi, where lay the great kingdoms of the Orient chief, JEHOVIH, with his millions of gods and goddesses and high-raised Ethereans. 3. Before JEHOVIH, came the swift messengers, fresh from the heavens of the earth, with their pitiful tales of woe that had befallen the inhabitants thereof. 4. JEHOVIH said, I behold the red star, the earth, O JEHOVIH. I have heard the tale of horror. What shall be done, O Father? 5. Then spake JEHOVIH, saying, Call thy tributary chief, Oahspe. Let him hear the will of JEHOVIH. 6. Then sent JEHOVIH for Oahspe, who had dominion over the fields of Anakarn in Etheria, through which lay the roadway where the earth was to travel for 3,000 years. 7. And when Oahspe came before the holy council of JEHOVIH's million gods and goddesses, the all-light fell upon the throne like a sun, and the voice of the Creator spake in the midst of the light, saying, 8. JEHOVIH, my son. And JEHOVIH answered, Here am I, thy servant, O JEHOVIH. 9. JEHOVIH said, Behold the red star, the earth, she entereth the fields of Anakarn. She is dripping wet and cold in the Gion eddies. Her God and lords are powerless in ends. The spell of darkness. Send thou thy son, Oahspe, to deliver the earth and her Heav, for behold, I will bring them to his door. 10. Then spake Oahspe, saying, Thy will be done, O JEHOVIH. Though I have been long honored in Etheria, with many Etherian worlds to command, I have not as yet redeemed one corporeal world and her heaven from a time of darkness. 11. JEHOVIH said, Go then, my son, to the laboring earth and deliver her, but first appoint thou a successor for Anakarn. 12. Then spake JEHOVIH, who was older than the red star, who had seen many corporeal worlds created, had seen them run their course, and then disappear as such. He said to Oahspe, 13. Send thou to Wan, and to Hivagat, in Etheria, and get the history of the earth and her heaven, and obtain thou also an account of her harvests of brides and bridegrooms to JEHOVIH. And thou shalt call from my realms as many million Etherian angels as thy labor may require, and with them proceed to the earth, and thou shalt have a line of swift singers established betwixt this place and thine, and, by the power of JEHOVIH, I will answer thy prayers in whatsoever thou shalt need. 14. Then Oahspe went back to Anakkern, his Etherian kingdom, and before his holy council made known JEHOVIH's will and his. And Oahspe called for 60 million volunteers, to go with him on his mission, and they came presently, some from Johan, some from Seeing, some from Arath, some from Gonlu, and from various other places in Anakkern, came in millions, came as many as Oahspe called for. 15. So Oahspe raised up a successor to JEHOVIH's throne in Anakkern, and he was installed and crowned according to the discipline of the Etherian heavens. 48 Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 2:16. And Oahspe sent swift messengers into the former roadway of the earth to obtain its history, its harvests of brides and bridegrooms. 17. Then gazed Oahspe toward the red star, and his 60 million volunteers also gazed, and watched her as she coursed along in the arches of Ve'atavi. 18. Thus Oahspe, well skilled in the course and behavior of worlds, gathered together his millions of angels, trained in arduous enterprise and furtherance of JEHOVIH's will. Quickly they framed and equipped an Orion port Ogon, and illuminated it with firelights and bolts. And these sons and daughters of JEHOVIH embarked and sped forth 500,000 miles, even on the outskirts of Anakkern, and they stood close above the earth, almost so near that the sweeping moon would fire. And here they halted, that both mortals and angels belonging to the earth might behold and fear, for such JEHOVIH made man, by unusual sights, to become weak and trembling, to change him to new purposes. 19. JEHOVIH's voice spake to Oahspe, saying, For 3 days and nights stand thou in the firmament that man on earth and in atmosphere may behold the power and majesty of my chosen in heaven. 20. Oahspe said, On the 4th day, O JEHOVIH, I will cross Chunvat, on the 5th, descend toward the earth. Bring me, O Father, thy messengers from the lower heaven. I will converse with them. 21. JEHOVIH sent the angels of the earth and lower heaven up to Oahspe. Disheartened they came, to know JEHOVIH's will. 22. Oahspe said unto them, The Father's hosts are come from their high estate and glorious ease, to redeem these fallen heavens, and man on the earth. It is our labor to come in love to the helpless, and teach them how to sing in JEHOVIH's praise. Then the swift singers answered. 23. In the all-persons boundless love, find thou recompense for thy holy words, most honored God. Down in darkness, long and earnestly, have the lords of earth labored conjointly with heaven's God, whose kingdom fell. Alas, our God, who ministered over the lower heaven, is crushed and humiliated. The Enmies of high heaven, exulting in their spoil of JEHOVIH's kingdom and his name, mock us, saying, Where now is JEHOVIH? Whence cometh the higher light? O ye faithists in an all-person boundless. 24. But now thy high shining sun, thy ship of Etherian fire, maketh the sons and daughters of the earth and her heaven to look, and to fear and to tremble. And when thy light appeared we made all haste in hope of succor. Our souls are more than filled with thankfulness, and in JEHOVIH's name, we will back and employ 1,000,000 trumpeters to proclaim around the earth and heaven, JEHOVIH is come. 25. After due salutation the swift messengers departed, and Oahspe made all things in readiness for his descent when the proper time should arrive. Chapter 2. JEHOVIH spake to Oahspe, saying Thou move thy Etherian ship toward the earth. And when thou arrivest within an Araphon thou shalt halt for another 3 days, that thy magnificence may awe the men and angels of earth with the power and glory of my emancipated sons and daughters. 2. Oahspe proceeded as commanded, and when he came within an Araphon, halted for 3 days, and the magnificence of the scene overcame the stubbornness of men of earth and angels in atmosphere. Again JEHOVIH said, 3. Proceed again, my son, and when thou art within half the breadth of the earth, halt once more and make in the place thereof a plateau, and it shall be the place of thy abiding for the time of dawn, which shall be 7 years and 60 days. 4. And from this time forth my Etherian hosts shall not remain in atmosphere more than 8 years in any one cycle. This, then, that I give to thee shall be like every dawn of Dan, some of 1 year, some of 2 or 3 or 4 or more years as the time requireth. 5. And thou shalt dwell in thy kingdom 7 years and 60 days, and the time shall be called the first dawn of Dan, and the next succeeding shall be called the second dawn of Dan, and so on, as long as the earth bringeth forth. 6. And the time from one dawn of Dan to another shall be called one danha, and 4 danhas shall be called one square, because this is the sum of one density, which is 12,000 of the earth's years. And 12 squares shall be called one cube, which is the first dividend of the third space, in which therefore 3 Oahspe is no variation in the vortex of the earth. And 4 cubes shall be called one sum, because the magnitude thereof embraced one equal of the great serpent. 2 sa, atmospheria, b, etheremes, e, earth. 7. Oahspe proceeded again, and moved within 4,000 miles of the earth, and the voice of JEHOVIH commanded Oahspe to halt in the place, and found a new kingdom, using all things requisite to that end. JEHOVIH said, 8. Thy place shall be a distance away from the earth, that thy dominion be not disturbed by the confusion of the fallen angels thereof. So also, to as many as thou shalt redeem away from the earth and from mortal contact, the distance of thy kingdom will prevent them returning. 9. Oahspe perceived, and he proclaimed what JEHOVIH had spoken to him. And the hosts cast out fastenings to the plateau, that the kingdom together with the Etherean sea of fire might rotate with the earth and its atmosphere. JEHOVIH said, 10. Make strong the foundation of thy place, and erect 10,000 pillars of fire around about, and in every direction provide roadways and mansions, but in the midst thou shalt build the house of counsel, wherein shall sit thy host of dominion during dawn. 11. Oahspe built the place as commanded by JEHOVIH, and when it was finished, JEHOVIH said, Thou shalt call the place Yeshua. And it was so called, because it was a place of salvation. Again JEHOVIH said, 12. Choose now thy counsel, my son, and also thy sub-officers, and when thou hast completed the list, leave in Yeshua the sub-officers and proceed thou, and thy counsel of 1,000,000 men and women with thee, down to the earth and heaven thereof, and cast thine eyes upon the inhabitants, for they are in distress. And when thou comest to the place of my lords and my God, deliver thou them and bring them to Yeshua, for they need rest. And as many of the Iahans in heaven as are capable, bring thou also away with thee, and give them into the care of thy people. 13. Oahspe did as commanded, first selecting his council and his officers, and then he and his hosts proceeded to the earth as had been commanded. Chapter 3. To this time the ancient names of the division of the lands of the earth had been maintained, and God and his lords being driven from the place of Hord, which had gone into dissolution, dwelt part of the time in Waga and part in Jud and Vohu. 50 Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 4:2. And God and the lords had established 3 kingdoms, one in Waga, one in Jud and one in Vohu, and within these kingdoms of heaven there were 200 million of redeemed angels capable of the second resurrection, and 100 million Essenes and unlearned apprentices. Chief of the 3 heavens was Waga, and thither had God and his lords congregated with their chief officers, as soon as the sign of the descending sea of JEHOVIH's kingdom appeared in the firmament above. 3. To God, JEHOVIH spake, saying, Make ready thy places, O my son, and thy lords with thee. Behold, I come in a world of fire, and my faithful workers shall find rest and happiness. 4. Oahspe will redeem thy sons and daughters, yea, he will girdle the earth about with new, Etherean light and great power. 5. Call together thy people, O God, and bid them rejoice and make merry, for the time of deliverance is at hand. 6. Then God communicated to the lords, and they again to others, the words of JEHOVIH, and at sight of the sign in heaven, the faithful began to rejoice and to gather together in their respective places. But of the unbelieving angels dwelling on earth, and with mortals, and in other abodes, of whom there were hundreds of millions, this is what happened. 7. They were overcome by the sight of the ship of fire in heaven above, and in fear fled in all directions. And by their great numbers, in the presence of mortals, caused mortals also to fear and flee in search of some secure place. And many of these spirits of darkness came beseechingly to be admitted into the kingdoms of the lords, whither they had been invited for hundreds of years, but would not come. 8. But God and the lords encompassed their places about with walls of light and would not receive the unbelieving. God said, Till such time as Oahspe shall arrive, let order be maintained within my kingdoms. So it came to pass that for 6 days and nights the fear that prevailed on earth and in heaven was such as had never been before since the earth was. 9. And God and the Lords brought their Essonors out, and they sang and danced before JEHOVIH. And on the approach of Oshong's hosts, with his musicians and heralds, and the great multitude, arrayed in shining raiment, even God and the Lords were overcome by the splendor and magnificence. 10. They sat down on the improvised throne, and the Etherian marshals approached and divided, first into single columns, then double, then quadruple, and so on till the 50,000 marshals had enclosed all sides, save the east, where was an open space through which Oshong came, attended by his chief councillors, of which there were 5,000. After these came the council of 1,000,000, interbroken here and there with groups of thousands of Essonors, who were chanting hymns of praise to JEHOVIH and his kingdoms. 11. The lower heaven above the continent of Waga and parts of Jud and Vohu was illuminated by the hosts of Oshong, the like of which had never been in atmosphere before. Nor was there any more work being done on earth or in heaven, because of the fear and great stirring up. 12. But now Oshong approached before the throne of God and the Lords, saluting with the sign of the second degree of JEHOVIH, saying, In JEHOVIH's name, and by his power, wisdom and love, am I come to give you joy. 13. God said, In JEHOVIH's name, all hail. Oshong, chief of Anakarn, all hail. And God went forward to the foot of the throne and received Oshong, whereupon the Lords came forward, saluting also. The Essonors ceased singing, and Oshong proceeded to the throne and sat thereon, and God took off his own crown and gave it to Oshong, and also gave him the triangle, which was called the heirloom of the heavenly kingdoms of earth, bestowed by command of JEHOVIH. 14. The all-light was abundant around about Oshong, and the voice of JEHOVIH spake out of the midst thereof, saying, Inasmuch as these things are done in my name prayerfully, and in faith, so do I dwell with you all. My son shall wear thy crown, O God. 15. Behold, I am come in might and swiftness, for it is the spring time of the earth. My son, Cephas, is afoot on the earth, he hath stirred up the earth born. But I will establish anew my light in these heavens. 16. Have I not said, I brought the seed of everlasting life to the earth? I gave God and his Lords to teach mortals and spirits of my glories in the upper heavens. And I commanded that they that came up out of the earth should be my God and my Lords in these realms. 17. Ye were installed by my hand, and have done a good work. Think not that I curse because Hord and Meb are fallen. Knew I 5:1-5 Oahspe. Not beforehand that these things would be. Behold, I have provided all my works so that man should be forever making new things. Had Hord stood, there had been no heaven to rebuild on earth in this day. How, then, could my newborn gods learn? Think not that I come to teach with mine own labor, I provide my people that they shall teach one another. 18. What is so conceited as man? And yet I bring him into life the dumbest of animals. Man prideth himself in his power and wisdom. I send the drought, the rains and winds, the weakest of my members, and they show man he is nothing. So also do my gods and Lords of the lower heaven become conceited of their power and wisdom, but a turn of a word, and their heavens fall. Thousands of millions of souls turn from order and high estate into confusion and anarchy. Thus do I confound men and angels, and in their seeming misery lay the foundation for an everlasting good. The voice ceased. 19. Oshong said, In the name of JEHOVIH, I announce my presence over earth and the lower heaven. 20. The marshals said, All hail. En, Shong, God of heaven and earth. Proclaim him in JEHOVIH's name. 21. Hardly had these words gone forth, when the voice of the entire hosts joined in proclaiming, All hail. O God, Son of JEHOVIH. 22. Oshong, now God, said, Thy crown shall be my crown, for under this shall JEHOVIH's power triumph. Otherwise people would say, Behold, there is no virtue in JEHOVIH's. So he placed it on his head and rose up and saluted the retired God and Lords, saying to them, Crowns. 23. I have a place for ye, and it is called Yeshua. Retire thither with my proper officers, and partake of rest and the freedom of the place until I come also. But the retired God and Lords said, We pray thee, put us to labor. Whereupon God, Oshong, said, 24. JEHOVIH's sons must not be humiliated. How, then, can ye labor under me? Were ye not JEHOVIH's God and Lords? Throne. God said, I announce the presence of JEHOVIH's Lords of the earth. The Marshals said, All hail. O Magi and Bing Fo and Nest, JEHOVIH's Lords of earth. 28. These were also proclaimed by the voice of the assembled hosts. God said, In JEHOVIH's name, go your ways, O Lords of earth. 29. Whereupon the Lords crowned themselves and at once departed, saluting reverently. 30. God said, Bring the atmospherine Marshals before me. They were brought and stationed in front of the throne. God said, Glory be to thee, O JEHOVIH. I have looked upon thy sons and daughters who have withstood a great darkness, but retained faith in thee. In thy name, and by virtue of thy power, do I deliver them. Let him who is chief answer me, how many angels are prepared for the second resurrection? 31. Sani, chief marshal, said, 200 million. God said, Retire thou and thy companions, and gather together JEHOVIH's harvest of souls, and I will send them to Yeshua. 32. The atmospherines were then duly arranged as commanded, and God called 100 swift messengers and 1,000 Etherian marshals, and they provided abatos, and the hosts, prepared for the second resurrection, departed for Yeshua, as commanded. 33. God said, I have now remaining my Etherian hosts and the atmospherines in darkness. Of the latter, let them remain as they are for 3 days, for I will travel around the world, and my Etherian hosts with me, observing mortals and spirits in their places and habits, that I may the better judge them and provide accordingly. 34. So God and his Etherian angels provided an abatos, and they embarked and started on their journey, traveling imperceptibly to mortals. Chapter IV. He Council of Yeshua, 25. They perceived, and, after due salutation were 1 million en assemblée, of which their tions were provided with an escort of 500,000 men and women, and they departed on their way to Yeshua. 26. God Oshong said, Let Magi come before me, and Bing Fo and Nest. They shall be my lords of dawn in JEHOVIH's name. 27. The three came and stood before the groups, and these again represented in groups, and these in still other groups. Consequently, a group of 1,000 had one speaker, who became the voice of that 1,000. Of these speakers, 100 had one voice in Council, and of these, 10 had one voice before God, and he was the voice of the whole, and 52 Book of Oshong, son of JEHOVIH. 6 JEHOVIH was his voice. Thus was the whole council represented in all its parts. And this was the manner of proceeding, to wit, 2. God commanded the subject. The council deliberated in thousands, and each speaker became aware of the voice of his group. Then these speakers assembled in hundreds and deliberated, and they again centered into one voice, and each 10 of these had one voice before God. Thus it came to pass that the decrees of God were both the wisdom of men and of JEHOVIH. Hence the saying, when God said this, or God commanded that, it was the word of JEHOVIH expressed by men and angels. 3. After God and his hosts visited the earth and the lower heaven, they returned to Yeshua and sat in council on the affairs of mortals and atmospherines. 4. God said, Behold, the heavens and earth have become like gardens grown foul and rank, producing nothing. I have come with a pruning knife and a consuming fire. 5. God said, I withdraw from the drudge and the drunk the beneficence of JEHOVIH is chosen, I leave them destitute. Who can approach the beggar with wisdom, or the king with inspiration to be good? A drowning man will try to swim, but the reveler in lust must perish before his soul can learn JEHOVIH. 6. Better is it to labor with a child from infancy, and thence to maturity, to teach it aright, than to strive with a score of conceited adults, and fail to redeem one. Who is the mocker of charity more than they that give to such as can help themselves but will not? Wisdom and uprightness of heart are but bread. Preach not to unwelcome ears, or sermons of wisdom to be forced into men's souls. 7. Blessed JEHOVIH, he made hunger, and so men love bread. Without hunger they would not eat. A wise God driveth home to man's understanding his helplessness in spirit when JEHOVIH is denied. 8. Pursue the earth, O my beloved, bring hence all light. Pursue the lower heaven of the earth also, bring hence all light. I will leave the earth and heaven in darkness 1 whole year. They shall cry out, their conceit in the dumb wind shall fail. 9. Have not the spirits of heaven despoiled hoard and mead? Do not evil spirits and evil men say, Behold, there is enough. Let us divide. But they produce not. They are devourers, living on others' substance. The great Spirit made man to exert, by exertion groweth he in wisdom and strength. 10. They seek ease and comfort, helpless and more helpless they fall, they are on the road to everlasting destruction. Happy is the God who can arouse them. Chapter V. O.D. said, Blessed is the surgeon's knife, its burn is the capital of health regained, but yet a fool will cry out, Hold! Hold! Enough! Thou inflicter of pain. 2. Who hath an eye like JEHOVIH? His whipping posts are on all sides, but there is a clear road between them. Yet man followeth it not. 3. Withdraw all good men and good angels, and there is no person left, they would not be half made up. A man without an arm or a leg is but part of a man without perception of the all-person is a deformity in soul. He seeketh a home for his own ease and glory, but the Son of JEHOVIH seeketh to find the severest labor that will profit his brethren. 4. Yeshua shall be my homestead, hither will I bring the fruit of heaven below, hither build my training schools. 7 years shall be my service, and they shall learn the ways of Etheria. Build me a house of brotherhood and fill it with willing pupils sworn to labor. I will make them gods and lords with power and wisdom. 5. Behold, a man maketh a factory and turneth out fabric for sale. I make a college and I turn out sons and daughters of JEHOVIH, to give away. Bring me such material as will stand in warp and filling, JEHOVIH's fabric shall endure forever. Search me out the seed of Oahspe, and house them with care, for they shall redeem the earth born after I ascend to the Father's kingdom. Chapter V. All the first best angels of atmosphere A were brought away from the earth and housed in Yeshua, being placed at school and in factories new made in heaven. These were Oahspe's. 2. The second first best spirits were brought also, but placed in hospitals and nurseries. 3. Of those who had advanced to receive the second resurrection, God said, Build in 5:3-7 Oahspe. Etherian ship and take them to Oahspe, in Etheria. 4. So it came to pass there were 200 million raised to the second resurrection, of the grade 35. Oahspe leath betwixt Etheria and 7 Ag, which is the lowest of the Etherian heavens next to an atmospherine abode. 5. God said, 2 qualities have I left in Yeshua, first and second. These shall be the new kingdom after I am ascended. From these I will raise up a God and lords, and they shall rule over the lower heaven and the earth, and they shall bequeath to others after them to rule in like manner. 6. Thus was founded the second light of JEHOVIH on the fruit of the earth. God's Etherine hosts became as a training school to raise up a God and lords and marshals and esonors, and all other officers, and men and women, for a lower heaven. God said, Yeshua shall not approach nearer the earth, nor shall it be his horde, where spirits of darkness might easily approach. 7. 100 million spirits did God and his lords and fellow laborers bring from the earth to Yeshua, and they were placed in a brotherhood apportioned in the places suited to their talents. And God divided the time of study, and of recreation, and of music, and of discipline, marching and so on, suited to all the people, and it was a place of order and glory. 8. For without discipline there is nothing, and discipline cannot be without ceremony, nor ceremony without rites, and forms, and established words. Is it not a foolish soldier that saith, Behold, I am wise? I need no discipline nor manual of arms. What more is he than one of an untutored mob? 9. God said, As I drill them in heaven to make them a unit, so give ye to mortals rites and ceremonies, that, coming into heaven, they go not back to their old haunts and fall in darkness. Whatever tendeth to harmonize the behavior of individuals is of the Father, the opposite tendeth to evil. Better is it that men march to the sound of one monotonous word, than not to march at all. The value lieth not in the word, but in bringing in unison that which was void. A fool saith, I need not pray, there is no virtue in words. But his soul groweth up at variance with JEHOVIH. Neither is there more virtue in the prayer or the words, than in marching sacred dance before JEHOVIH, for whatever tendeth to unite men in one expression of soul in harmony, is JEHOVIH's. 10. Sacred dances and rites and ceremonies were established in Yeshua in the name of JEHOVIH, and the new heaven became a place of delight. 11. God said, Teach my chosen to labor hard and wisely, and to dance with energy, and to sing with strength and fullness of soul. For what more is there in any man or woman than to learn to put forth? And what more pitiful thing is there in heaven than a man or woman who hath but dragged along? Chapter 7. Then all the first best spirits of the mortals were taken away and domiciled in Yeshua. There were left only Druhas, spirits of darkness, on the face of the earth. For 1 whole year God left the earth void of JEHOVIH's light. 2. Mortals loved more to commune with the spirits of their kindred, who knew little of heaven, than they did with Ethereans who were wise and holy. 3. God said, What man or what woman have ye found who saith, Come ye angels of JEHOVIH, tell me wherein I can do more good works, for I thirst, and am hungry to serve JEHOVIH with all my wisdom and strength in doing good to my fellows. 4. Rather did they turn away from such, and drink in the tales of the strolling drudge, and so wrap themselves up in darkness. For this reason shall they find darkness in heaven and earth, and they shall be as one who is sick and broken down in conceit. 5. When the year of darkness was ended, God sent crooners around about the earth and in the lower heaven of the earth. 2,000,000 crooners sent he forth, saying to them, Find all the evil spirits dwelling with mortals, whether they be fetals or familiars, and gather them into one place. Then find the spirits and fairies who have taken up caves and waterfalls on earth as their abode, and bring them to the same place. Then find the idiotic and chaotic spirits who dwell on battlefields, and bring them to the same place. Then find the lusters, who dwell in old castles and ruined cities, and in houses of evil, and when they are going out for raids on mortals, seize them and bring them to the same place. 54 Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 8:6. The Ethereans went and collected all the evil spirits and the spirits of darkness belonging to the earth, and brought them to a place in Atmosphere, and there were of them 900 million. 7. God said, Prepare a ship suitable to transport them to Hudau, in Jaya, and there provide them a kingdom to themselves, giving them a god and lords and proper officers to discipline and educate them for JEHOVIH's kingdoms. 8. Thus were they removed, and the earth and its lower heaven were purified from evil spirits by the decree of God in Yeshua, in the 2nd year of the first dawn of Dan. Chapter 8. And the 2nd year of Yeshua, God, that is Oahspe, caused to be established in his heaven all requisite places of learning and industry, whereby and wherein Essenes might be educated to good works, and to a general knowledge of JEHOVIH's kingdom's universe, and there volunteered a sufficient number of Ethereans as teachers and practicers of work for all that was required. 2. God said, Now that the earth and heaven are purified from evil, my lords shall deliver the Essenes to the Asaphs, and enjoin them to deliver in Yeshua, which I have established a short distance from the earth as a barrier against their returning to mortals. JEHOVIH saith, Suffer not the blind to lead the blind. 3. And it was so, at the time mortals died, their spirits were taken by the Asaphs to Yeshua, and to make this an acceptable labor to the Essenes, God said, Tell my lords of the earth to teach mortals by inspiration and otherwise of my kingdom, Yeshua. 4. And so it came to pass through the lords and the Ashers, that is, the guardian spirits with mortals, that the name, Yeshua, was established on the earth. God said, In the time of Cosman, men shall say, Whence came the name of heavenly things? But Yeshua shall lie hid away, and JEHOVIH will in that day stretch forth his hand and disclose all. 8:5. But mortals were thick in tongue, and could not say Yeshua, and they said Su. Hence came the name of many men, Eahsu, signifying, without evil, which is the ultimate salvation of the soul. 6. JEHOVIH spake through God, saying, The time of the end of dawn cometh, and my emancipated sons and daughters shall return to their places, taking the resurrected with them. But that the earth and lower heaven may not be left in darkness, provide ye a God and lords and marshals and messengers, and all other officers, to rule and teach in my name. 7. From the born of earth shall ye make them, and they shall hold office for 200 years, and 400 years, and 600 years, according to the atmospherian cycles. 8. Suffer not my Etherean hosts to remain longer than dawn, either on the earth or within atmosphere, for I shall take the earth into dark regions in order to build it up to a higher state for the time that cometh after. 9. The voice departed. God said, Let the voice of the council deliberate on this matter, and speak before the Father. For I will provide also a heaven in the ancient place of Hord, and it shall be called Bispa, for it shall be a place of reception for the spirits of the dead preparatory to their being brought to Yeshua. 10. In course of time there were raised up many of the earth born, and God selected them and appointed them to fill the places, and he founded Bispa, and Oahspe read it according to the command of JEHOVIH. After God established rites and ceremonies, and processions and dances, with sacred words, in Yeshua, he commanded his lords to give the same things to mortals, and they so fulfilled all that was designed from the beginning. 11. In the 7th year of Dawn God commanded his council to select another God and lords, and other officers, and the council proceeded after the manner of the ancients, selecting the most learned, and the purest and holiest, according to their rank in godliness chose they them, and a record was made of these matters and deposited in the library of Yeshua. 12. So it came to pass that God called in his own lords of the earth, and set apart the first day of the new moon as the day on which he would consecrate the God and lords, his successors, and he called the day Mas, the name of which endureth to this day of Cosman. Furthermore, God established the moon's day Mas on the earth as a time of consecration. And this is the origin of saying Mass. 13. When the chosen were in place before the throne, God said, By command of JEHOVIH are ye brought before me, his son, in his 5:5-9 Oahspe. Name will I consecrate ye to the places commanded of him. 14. The marshals then conducted him that ranked highest up to the seat of the throne. God said, 15. In the name of JEHOVIH, and by his power, wisdom and love, do I ordain thee God, of heaven and earth. He that receiveth from my hand receiveth from my Father, who raised me up. 16. The initiate said, All power cometh from the Father. All wisdom cometh from the Father. All love cometh from the Father. In his name and by virtue of his commandments through his Son, receive I all that is put upon me, for his glory, forever. 17. God then said, Give me a crown, O Father, for thy Son. A scarlet light descended from above, and God reached forth his hands and wove it into a crown and placed it on the initiate's head, saying, God of heaven and earth, thee I crown. And now shalt thou receive also the sacred triangle, which is the heirloom of the gods of earth. And he hung it around his neck, adding, And since there can be but one God on earth or in this heaven, I herewith uncrown myself in JEHOVIH's name, and salute thee, O God, God of earth and heaven. 18. Oahspe now stood to the right, and God, who was ordained, went and sat on the throne, and there descended red and blue lights from above, enveloping him completely, and he was quickened. He said, 19. Let the initiates for lords of earth approach the throne of the Most High JEHOVIH. 20. The 5 lords came forward. God said, Join hands and receive ye from the Father. By virtue of the power, wisdom and love of JEHOVIH, vested in me, receive I thee as the highest chosen, and I proclaim thee Lord of earth, in JEHOVIH's name. Accept this crown from heaven above, the like of which cannot be woven from earthly things, by its power shalt thou remain in accord with Yeshua and the kingdoms above. 21. God fashioned the crowns and then crowned them lords of the 5 divisions of the earth. God said, Retire thou aside and choose thy messengers and officers, and after ordaining them, depart to the kingdom prepared for thee. The Lord said, 22. In thy name, O JEHOVIH, do I accept that which thou hast put upon me. With all my wisdom and strength and love will I serve thee, O my Father, JEHOVIH. 23. The lords retired, and the Essonors sang, more than 1,000,000 voices in concert. End chapter X. How had the time come for the end of the first dawn of Dan after the creation of man? And this was known in the Etherian heavens, where lived countless millions of JEHOVIH's sons and daughters emancipated. And, as might be expected, they determined to descend from all sides to witness the labors of Oahspe, and to receive his works as a profitable lesson for their own future on other new worlds. 2. Consequently, there began to appear in the firmament far-off stars, approaching, and these were the Etherian ships in remote places, where the name of Oahspe had been known for thousands of years. From all sides they came, growing brighter and brighter, larger and larger. 3. Oahspe spoke to his companions, saying, Make ready, O my beloved. My friends and your friends are coming. Put our ship in order. Light the pillars of fire and spread out the sails, shining, that they may be glorified in JEHOVIH's name. 4. The proper persons accomplished these things, and to the eastward of Yeshua the Etherian ship of Oahspe was anchored, and so great was the size thereof that there was room for the Ethereans of Anakkern and upward of 300 million of the redeemed of earth besides. 5. Oahspe said, "When our friends arrive, we shall join them and make an excursion round the earth, discovering its rank and glorious promises. But as to the 900 million druhas which I sent off to Hudau, in JEHOVIH, we shall pass thither on our way to Anakkern." 6. Brighter and brighter grew the descending stars, the Etherian ships from far-off worlds, and larger, till in majesty they neared Yeshua. Oahspe then came down and sat at the foot of the throne, according to the custom of gods. God came down and took him by the hand, saying, "Son of JEHOVIH, that maketh thyself the least of men, arise, and take thy hosts, and embark in JEHOVIH's ship, going whithersoever thou wilt." Oahspe rose up. The essonors and trumpeters played and sang. Then Oahspe said, 7. One more love have I in the world, O 56 Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 10. JEHOVIH, I go from Yeshua, but my love remaineth. To thee, O God, will I look back in hope and love, for thou wert raised by me. And to thy lords what less could I say? Yea, and to all the hosts I leave within these realms. 8. Oahspe touched God's right hand, and then saluting, with the third sign of Emeth to JEHOVIH, departed, and the marshals conducted him off to the ship. 9. Oahspe and his Etherian hosts rose up in curtains of light, and presently the ship was loosened from its anchorage and floated upward, and all the angels entered into it, and the sails were spread out, and the mantles suspended on every side, till the whole vessel, with its thousands of masts and arcs, looked like a world on fire. The inhabitants of Yeshua feared and trembled for the mighty works of the gods and goddesses, and yet, as the essonors on the departing ship chanted, more than 1,000,000 voices, the Yeshuans sang with them, amidst their tears, with souls overflowing with awe and love and admiration. 10. And in this same time the descending stars of other gods and goddesses, the Etherian ships from far-off worlds, were drawing nearer and nearer, and, on every side, the firmament was as if alive with worlds on fire. 11. Presently they came, first one and then another of the Etherians, and they made fast to Oahspe's ship, until thus more than 500 were united into one mighty vessel, and yet so near to Yeshua that all could be seen. 12. And when they had united there were countless millions of angels thus in close proximity, many who had known one another for thousands of years, and some who were older than the earth, and knew its history. And these had companions as old as themselves, and they were ripe in experience with corporeal earths, stars and suns in other regions of JEHOVIH's kingdoms. 13. So great was the wisdom of these gods and goddesses that to come within the earth's atmosphere was sufficient to enable them to read all the souls and prayers of mortals, and all the thoughts and desires of the spirits of the lower heaven belonging to the earth. To each and all of them the voice of JEHOVIH was ever present, and their power was like unto their wisdom. 14. JEHOVIH hath said, To the corporean I have given power to hear one or two things at the same moment of time, but my gods can hear intelligently tens of thousands of men speaking at the same time. Yea, they can find a way to answer them also. 15. When the ships were ready for depart Oahspe said, Let us pass low over Yeshua, and ye shall hear and see those I have founded in a new heaven. His companions said, JEHOVIH's will be done. Thereupon they proceeded, and after they had visited Yeshua they descended to the earth, and round about the places of the lords, and when they had seen all, and heard the explanation, from those with Oahspe, of the state the earth was in, and of the heavens of the earth, they rose higher and higher, and sailed toward Anakkern, whither Oahspe had invited them for repast and social intercourse. 16. Thus departed the Etherians from the earth and atmosphere. This, then, was the beginning of the cycles of Dan, and the first dawn was closed and past. 17. And the earth gods, that is, the lords, who were now called Adonai, were such as had been brought forth out of the earth. And God, who had dominion in the atmosphere of the earth, was also an earth born, and so were all the angels in atmosphere the product of the earth. 18. And in JEHOVIH's name were the lords and God appointed and crowned to rule in their respective places, and they thus became the instruments of JEHOVIH for his glory. 19. JEHOVIH said, Whoever serveth me, in my name, is my son, or my daughter. The light of my judgment falleth upon them sufficient for the time and place. Inasmuch as ye honor them, ye honor me also. Through the flowers of the field I express myself in color and perfume, Through the lion and mastodon I express myself with power and voraciousness. Through the lamb and the dove I express myself in meekness and docility. Through man I express myself in words and actions, and all men, the wise and the ignorant, are channels of my expression. Some have thick tongues and poor speech, nevertheless they are my babes, my sons and daughters. 20. JEHOVIH said, After the Samwan age I gave to the earth from my Etherian heavens sons and daughters, and they abode with mortals for 3,000 years. And my Etherines established Lewis on the lands of the earth, and they commanded the Lewis, saying to them, Your office is to lead mortals by inspiration to dwell together, man and woman, as husband and wife, and in such adaptation 5711 Oahspe. As the first Rosl Fin Schwan Yak that their offspring shall rise higher in wisdom, love and power, than the father and mother. 21. JEHOVIH said, I will confound the wise man in the latter days, for he shall not discover why man and woman lived not indiscriminately, as the beasts. Yea, I will show him that they who profess me are led by me, that they who deny me go down to indiscriminate communion. Out of my works, shall the lessons of the early days of the earth show the presence of my hand from the beginning. By my Lewis was man and woman inspired to raise up such sons and daughters as would glorify me in my works, by my Lewis have I maintained my foothold amongst mortals. 22. Such as could comprehend me, having faith that my presence in person should ultimately triumph for the highest and best, I commanded to be called faithists. Since the beginning, have I kept a thread of this line inhabiting the earth and her heavens. 23. At the end of the second cycle there were in Atmosphere 6,000 million angels, who were for the most part in darkness, not knowing who they were, or where they dwelt, nor knowing nor caring whether there were other heavens or not. 24. And now began wars in Atmosphere, thousands of angels against thousands, and millions against millions. 25. For the possession of sections of the earth, and the mortal inhabitants thereof, went forth these millions of warring angels. And it came to pass that mortals also fell to war, and, by the obsessing angels, were made to destroy their own cities and kingdoms. 26. And the attractions of this great wickedness caused other angels of heaven to desert their schools and factories, and descend down to mortals. 27. Thus again were the kingdoms of God and his Lord set at naught, the harvests of brides and bridegrooms had long since ceased to be. 28. The first harvest was 200 years, and the number of brides and bridegrooms was 600 million, of grade 92. 58 Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 12129. The second harvest was 200 years, and was 800 million angels, of grade 89. 30. The third harvest was 600 years, and was 2,000 million angels, of grade 83. 31. The fourth harvest was 500 years, and was 2,300 million angels, of grade 74. 32. The fifth harvest was 300 years, and was 600 million angels, of grade 62. 33. The sixth harvest was 400 years, and 900 million angels, of grade 51. 34. And this was the last harvest, for none were of sufficient grade to abide in the Etherian heavens. End of Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. 1 An Araphon is about 20,000 miles. Philosophers have long known that some certain measure of ethereal space must be equal to the density of the planets for a balance of power. See Tablets of Cosmological Prophecies at the latter part of Book of Ben. 3 The original of Isis, or Jesu, or Jesus. See Tablet, Samoin Sappha, NV. 34. Where hands are joined the persons are addressed as one person. 59 Second Book of Lords of the Second Cycle, being cotemporaneo us with the Book of Oahspe, son of JEHOVIH. Chapter I ashamed, but the Lord raised man up and the beginning man was naked and not bade him hide his nakedness, and man obeyed, and was clothed. 2. And the Lord walked by man for a long season, showing him the way of resurrection, and man was obedient, depending on the Lord for all things. 3. And the Lord said unto man, Behold, I have walked with thee, and taught thee, but by my indulgence thou hast neglected to put forth thine own energy. 4. Now I am going away from thee for a season, that thou mayest learn to develop thyself. 5. But lest thou stumble and fall, I leave with thee certain commandments, and they shall be a guide unto thee and thy heirs forever. 6. Hear thou then the commandments of the Lord thy God. 7. Thou shalt love thy Creator with all thy mind, and heart and soul, all the days of thy life. 8. And thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. 9. Because thou wert born into the world without covering, thou shalt clothe thyself. 10. Then inquired man of the Lord, Behold, thou hast shown the ass what is good for him to eat, and the fish, and the serpent, and the lion, every living creature, but man only hast thou not shown. 11. The Lord said, Of everything that groweth up out of the ground that is good to eat give I unto thee, and they shall be food for thee. 12. But of all things of flesh and blood, wherein is life, thou shalt not eat. 13. For thou shalt not kill. 14. Man inquired of the Lord, Thou hast shown the males and females of all the living the times and periods to come together, but man and woman hast thou not shown. 15. The Lord said, Thou shalt learn from the beasts, and birds, and fishes, that the female during gestation is in keeping of her Creator. 16. Thou shalt also respect the times of woman. 17. Man inquired of the Lord, Thou hast shown the bird how to build her nest, and the carnivore how to scent the subtle track of his prey, and the spider to weave his net, but as to the manner of man's house, or as to herbs that are good or are poisonous, thou hast not shown man. 18. The Lord said, All the instinct that is in the bird, or beast, or fish, or insect, or creeping thing, was created with them, but man was created blank, and yet man shall attain to more subtle senses than any other living creature. 19. Man inquired, How shall man attain to these? 20. The Lord answered, Serve thy Creator by doing good unto others with all thy wisdom and strength, and by being true to thine own highest light, and all knowledge shall come to thee. 21. So the Lord left man for a season to himself, and man so loved the earth and whatsoever ministered unto his ease, and to his flesh desires, that he fell from his high estate. And great darkness came upon the earth. And man cast aside his clothes, and went naked, and became carnal in his desires. 62nd Book of Lords. 2. The chapter 2. He Lord went abroad over the earth, calling, Come to me, O man. Behold thy Lord is returned. 2. But man heard not the voice of the Lord, for, by man's indulgence, the spirit of man was covered up in his own flesh. 3. The Lord sent his Lewis masters of generations, angels next in rank above guardian angels, i.e., Ashers, to the Iahans, and they raised up heirs unto the Lord. By controlling the parentage of the unborn brought they into the world a new race of men, of the same seed and blood as of old, and these heard the voice of the Lord. 4. And the Lord said unto man, Because thou kept not my commandments thou hast brought affliction upon thyself, and thy people, to the farthest ends of the world. 5. Now will I raise thee up once more, and deliver the tribes of men from darkness into light. 6. And the Lord delivered man into wisdom, and peace and virtue, and the earth became as a garden of sweet-smelling flowers and luxurious fruit. 7. The Lord said, How sayest thou, O man? Shalt thou still have a keeper? 8. And man said, Behold, I am strong and wise. Go thou away from the earth. I understand thy commandments. 9. The Lord inquired, Knowest thou the meaning of, Love thy Creator? And man said, Yea, Lord, and to love my neighbor as myself, and to do good unto others with all my wisdom and strength. Yea, I have the all-highest light. I am wiser than the ancients. Behold, I want no Lord nor God, I am the highest product of all the universe. 10. The Lord said, I will try thee, O man, I will go away for a season. And 11. So the Lord departed once more. Man had nothing to look up to, so he looked at himself and became vainglorious. And the tribes of men aspired to overcome one another, war and destruction followed. 12. Man forgot his Creator. He said, No eye seeth me, no ear heareth me. And he neglected to guard himself against the serpent corporeality, and the serpent said unto him, Partake thou of all things, for they are thine. 13. And man gave heed, and, lo and behold, the race of man descended into utter darkness. And man distinguished not his sister or mother, and woman distinguished not her brother or father. 14. And God beheld the wickedness of man, and he called out, saying, Hear my voice, O man. Hear the voice of the Lord. 15. But because of the darkness of man he could not hear the voice of God, his Lord. 16. And the Lord sent his angels down to man that they might appeal to man's understanding. 17. But the angels loved darkness also, and strove not to lift man up out of darkness. And the Lord was of no more avail amongst mortals, and he departed away from the earth. And man became on the earth as a harvest that is blighted and rotted because of its rankness. End of the second book of Lords. 61 Synopsis of 16 cycles, being 48,000 years, and also including the sub-cycle of 1,000 years of darkness, covering a period from the creation of man down to the submersion of the continent of Pan, called by the ancients the flood, or deluge, which was 24,000 years b.k. Selected from the records in the libraries of heaven. First chapter IRST, the earth plieth in a circuit around the sun, which circuit is divided into 4 arcs called spring, summer, autumn and winter. 2. Second, the sun, with his family, plieth in a large circuit, which is divided into 1,600 arcs, the distance of which for each arc is about 3,000 years, or 1 cycle. 3. During a cycle, the earth and her heavens fall in the Etherian regions of hundreds of Etherian worlds, where dwell JEHOVIH's high-raised angels, whose chiefs have to do with the management of worlds. 4. During the time of a cycle, the earth is therefore under the control and management of such of JEHOVIH's angels for the resurrection of man of the earth. 5. At the time of the creation of man, the earth was traveling in the ark of Wan, where dwell thousands of Orion chiefs, with thousands of millions of high-raised angels. 6. The holy council of Orion chiefs, through the wisdom and voice of JEHOVIH, appointed one of their number, Sethants, to take charge of the earth, and to people it with immortal beings, during its travel in Wan. 7. The rank and title of Sethants, thus raised up by JEHOVIH, creator of worlds, was, first God of the earth and her heavens. 8. And Sethants came with millions of angels, who had been raised up from other worlds previously, and he accomplished his work, and was known as God. 9. Sethants was, then, the first God of the earth and her heavens, and his place was within the ark of Wan. And during his cycle of 3,000 years, he raised up from the earth 4,400 million brides and bridegrooms to JEHOVIH. 10. After Sethants came Oahspe, sub-chief in the realms of Hui in the Hyan ark of Viatavi. And during the cycle of Anakarn, also 3,000 years, Oahspe raised up from the earth a harvest of 7,200 million brides and bridegrooms. 11. The third cycle was under the dominion of Hula, surveyor of Kakyansta in the ark of Gimel, and his harvest was 3,700 million. 12. The fourth cycle was under Kapeaban, chieftainess of Sulgauran in the ark of Yan, and her harvest was 4,800 million. 13. The fifth cycle was under Pathodises, road maker in Chitavia in the ark of Yahomitak, and his harvest was 6,400 million. 14. The sixth cycle was under Gomagok, god of Iseg, in the ark of Samgwathga, and his harvest was 7,900 million. 15. The seventh cycle was under Gopans, god of Came, in the ark of Srivat, and his harvest was 9,300 million. 16. The eighth cycle was under Hysis, goddess of Ruts, in the ark of Hohamagalik, and her harvest was 9,400 million. 17. The ninth cycle was under Seatsishus, inspector of roads in Kamatra, in the ark of Jusian, and his harvest was 10,100 million. 62 Synopsis of 16 cycles. 18. The 10th cycle was under Miskelatavi, chieftainess of the arches of Losgobak, in the ark of Nu, and her harvest was 10,800 million. 19. And now the earth was full of people, all the continents and islands of the earth were inhabited by man, nor was there left any wilderness wherein man did not dwell. 20. But the generation of man had fallen from 33 years down to 12 years. And man and woman were at maturity at 7 years old, and not many lived above 30 years, but they were prolific, many of the mothers bringing forth 20 sons and daughters, and from 2 to 4 at a birth. 21. And man dwelt in peace, and the earth was tilled, and brought forth abundantly of everything that was good for man to eat, and to clothe himself. And there were in those days great cities of hundreds of thousands of inhabitants, thousands and thousands of such cities, and in all the 5 great divisions of the earth. And man built ships and sailed over the ocean in all directions, around about the whole world. By the angels of the Lord was he taught and guided in all things. And man had books, both written and printed, and the young were taught in schools, a knowledge of the sun and moon and stars, and of all things that are upon the earth and in the waters thereof. This was therefore called the first period of civilization on the earth. 22. Now, for the most part, all the people had become Iahans, small, white and yellow. Nevertheless there were ground people, with long arms, who were large, but they dwelt by themselves, and their food was of all manner of flesh, and fish and creeping things. The ground people were brown and black, and they lived to be 200, and even 400 years old. A generation shall be 33 years. For my harvests shall be of fruit that is mature and full of ripeness. 26. And JEHOVIH brought the earth into new regions in the Etherian worlds, and covered it over with Oahspe, east and west and north and south. 27. And it came to pass that many of the Iahans lost the generative desire and, so, brought not forth many heirs. But the brown people burnt with desires, and they laid hold of the Iahan women when they went into the fields, and forced them, and thus brought forth again the Iwan race, the copper-colored, strong and bright and quick. 28. Accordingly the 11th cycle, which was under Gobath, god of Tirngothaga, in the ark of Suele, brought forth a harvest of 6,700 million. 29. The 12th cycle was under Phyes, goddess of Luga, in the ark of Sion, and her harvest was 2,600 million. 30. The 13th cycle was under Zinniathes, keeper of the Cress, in the ark of Olganiah, and his harvest was 1,200 million. 31. The 14th cycle was under Tothsantaga, road maker in Hapanogos, in the ark of Menechu, and his harvest was only 600 million. 32. The 15th cycle was under Nemeas, god of Thosgothamachus, in the ark of Saga, and his harvest was only 40 million. 33. The 16th cycle was under Neph, god of Soghans, in the ark of Arbruk, but he failed to bring forth any harvest. Chapter 2. 23. JEHOVIH said, In the early days I raised God, that is Neph, said, Hear my prayer, up Iwans, and I gave them certain commandments, amongst which was, not to cohabit with the druks lest they go down in darkness. But they obeyed not my words, and lo and behold, they are lost from the face of the earth. 24. Because the Iahans have become a spirit Ual people and have prospered in peace and spirit, behold, they have degenerated in the corporeal body. They yield abundant harvests for my Etherian realms, but they are like untimely births. 25. Now will I bring the earth into Augean fields and forests for a long season, for I shall again reproduce the Iwans, and the time of are gone down in darkness. 2. The Iahan hath been despoiled on all the divisions of the earth save Waga. 3. More than 30,000 million angels are gathered on the surface of the earth, and they are too low in grade to be delivered. 4. What shall thy God do, O Father? 5. Mortals are descending in breed and blood, only as deceased vermin do they inhabit the earth. 6. Their cities are destroyed, and they dwell after the manner of four-footed beasts. 7. The inspiration of thy God and his angels can no longer reach them.